Facebook ad performance and know what improvements to make and how to further accelerate your progress, get your cost per lead even lower. I'm going to walk you through a ad that I've been working on this week. That's pretty unusual. I'm going to actually walk you through it as kind of a way to kind of look at results. I'll go through each of the columns, what screen you should look at to actually get the right numbers, and what each of those numbers mean. So go through the various different scenarios. So stay tuned as I take a further look within Ads Manager, show you each of the columns, show you an ad example. And by the end of it, you'll have a great idea as you run ads. If you're running ads right now, what you can do to further improve performance, or if you're running ads for the first time, how to be really confident, especially as some data comes through on how you can kind of pull different levers to get even better results. Get your cost per lead even lower. So if you're joining my lives for the very first time, I'm Brian Czekanski. I'm a copywriter that focuses on Facebook ad copy, primarily for coaches and businesses that have moms as their audience. So what I'm going to do right now is kind of just share my screen really briefly. So just give me a second to bring up my screen in front of me. I'm just going to share it. So this was an ad that I've been working on for the past week, and it just had some unusual qualities that I thought were worth sharing, and I think gives you a little good insight into what to look out for. So first thing first is when you're looking at your data, bring up the specific ad that you're looking for, go to that ads, hit that checkbox, go to ads for campaign within Ads Manager. And then what we're going to select when you come right here is the screen that we're going to look for all the time is called performance and clicks. And what this is going to do is give you, like all the specific numbers that we're looking for as we go through. So this was an ad that I've been running for the last few days for a client. I actually turned it off yesterday, and I'll kind of go into some of the reasons behind that. But I think it gives you kind of just fresh data to go through, and I'll show you kind of as we go through each column what each of them means and how you can actually how to interpret it, how to go forward with that. So first thing, as we kind of look at the results here, this is what's actually coming through. This is what Facebook for this conversion ad is really showing you. We had 10 results of people that really opted in for that. And the important thing to kind of recognize is as you're running ads, especially if you're running conversion ads, is to kind of line up with what Facebook is showing you with what you have, what you see elsewhere. So again, are you getting actual lead data? So one of the things that I would always suggest that you do, especially if you're running conversion ads, is tie it to some kind of email marketing. So if you're getting conversions coming through, you're getting their name, their email address, their all that information, it's going through to your email service provider. Make sure that the lead information that you're seeing here, so 10 of them, make sure that, again, 10 people have joined your email list. If you're going straight to a product or a service where somebody's putting down a credit card, make sure you have 10 receipts there. And the reason why this is important is, especially with the Apple iOS update, is sometimes Facebook isn't going to get the data that you're particularly going out there and doing. So like, again, as Apple kind of blocks off some of the targeting and some of the data that Facebook is receiving, you might have a better performing ad than you actually realize or what Facebook is showing you. So again, you might have a scenario in the next few months where if you're going out to Apple users, it might not have already gotten that information back to the ad right now. So you might have a couple extra. So you might have 15 people that have become leads, but it's not actually showing up within Facebook. And that's all due to the fact that Apple is kind of holding back some of that data for some of your ads that are out there. So just be aware of that. Sometimes there's going to be discrepancies, and I would assume going forward there's going to be even more discrepancies between the data that you see, especially if you're going out to Apple users as well. So just really keep track of that. Take a look at your data, make sure it lines up with what you're seeing from a lead level. And the other side that I've seen as well is Facebook is showing some results of 10 people becoming a lead, and it's not really coming through. It's not actually the true numbers that you're seeing. You're not seeing 10 people being added to your email list, or you're not seeing 10 new customers. And that's just an indication of maybe that your Facebook pixel or that custom conversion that you set up for your specific website isn't necessarily set up correctly. Maybe it's going to the wrong page. This is what I talked about a few days ago in terms of setting up a conversion ad, making sure that that pixel is set up on the right page, which is basically the thank you page after they've submitted their personal information. If you're putting, like if you want them to purchase something after they submitted their credit card information. So a lot of times this won't match up because maybe you put the pixel on the page, before the one that you really wanted. You put it on the page where they put in their personal information versus that thank you page. So just be aware of that. If the results aren't lining up with what you're expecting, that's just an easy way to do a check. So just keep an eye on that as we go through. So the other part, so if we go I'll just go through each of the columns, kind of just explain what all these are about. So you have a good understanding of like, why are these here? What should I pay attention to? And I'll get into like, okay, like as we go through and see the data, what's most important, and how do you know, how can you kind of diagnose where your ad is and where should you potentially make some improvements or test out some new things as you go along. So if we think about reach here, this kind of second column, this just means how many people have actually seen your ad. So again, for this ad, a little over 5 days, I think it was, a little less than 2,000 people saw it. And the frequency just means within your targeting space, how many times did that specific market see this ad? So you can see the frequency of it was a little over one time. So means that within the specific market that I was targeting for, people on average saw it a little over, like some people saw it 2 times, some people saw it 1 time, but that just gives you an idea of the frequency. And the frequency is just important because, especially if you're going to a smaller market and they continue to see the same ad over and over again, that's going to lead to more of some ad fatigue. So again, if they see the same offer and they're not opting in for it and they're not becoming a lead for you, that's where you might want to, again, as you look at some of these other data points, maybe that's an indication of too small of a market, but also as people see more and more of your ads, you might want to mix up the ad copy. You might want to create some other additional ads just to test out for that same market, just so they're not seeing the same thing over and over again. Think of it as like, if you're watching TV and you see that same commercial over and over again, it just becomes really repetitive, and you kind of tune out to it, and you don't really want that happening from a Facebook ad perspective as well. So again, just an indicator of what's out there. And then the cost per result. So like this is the most important, like one of the most important columns that you're really going to think about. And this is kind of the beauty of Facebook, is that it can actually give you a specific number that you actually, like in this instance, we're kind of putting out a new offer and a new ad for something that, for the first time. So we don't have a great sense of like how much we have to spend to get to a new customer. But eventually, as you run ads for more than a month or more than a few weeks, you're going to get to the point, and as you're getting results, you're going to get to that specific number where you know exactly how much you have to spend to get to a qualified lead. And you'll get a sense for like, based on the number of leads that I have out there, what's my conversion ratio? Like how many of those leads do I actually turn into clients, customers, whatever it is? And having a good idea of those numbers, you'll eventually get to the point where you can say, yeah, I know that I can spend, like for every $10 that I spend on Facebook, I get X number of clients, I get X number of customers. And that's a really powerful place to be, because exactly, again, if you're a coach and you have openings on your schedule, you know exactly how much you have to spend, and you can kind of reverse engineer it in terms of putting out the right amount to fill up your calendar. Same thing from a business perspective. If you're trying to sell a specific number of products or services in that given quarter, you have a good sense of what your budget should be on Facebook, and you can obviously scale that up as you're seeing more and more success, as you're getting that positive ROI. Ultimately, you want to get to the point where you're putting, for every $1 that you're putting into Facebook, that you're getting $2 back. Again, I covered that yesterday in terms of having the right offers and the right strategies and kind of creating that buyer's journey. So if you didn't check that out, check check out the live from yesterday where I really went through how to create a profitable strategy for you to actually run ads. But this is kind of the power for all the people that talk about the headaches of Facebook ads. This is still the power of it, that you can still go out there and really figure out, like, how much do I actually have to spend to get to X, to get to one customer, to get to one client, and what is that one client worth? And you can kind of, again, reverse engineer, so you know exactly how do you get that positive ROI going forward. So really the most important numbers as you go through is kind of looking at these first ones, especially with conversion ad. How many results am I getting? And again, for Facebook, they want, especially for conversion ads, they want at least 60 of these results coming through. And that just gives the algorithm enough information, enough data, so that they can kind of optimize for those leads that came through and find similar people within that market to do it. So for this one, only getting 10 people within 5 days was never going to get to 60. So that was one of the main reasons that ultimately Facebook kind of just shut the ad down, because there wasn't enough data coming through. What you'll see is when you start running an ad for the first time, it'll mark the ad as kind of going through a learning, kind of a learning process, or a learning period, where it's just kind of collecting data, getting a sense of who are the people that are actually opting in, who are those leads, and how can we kind of use that data to find similar people within the targeting market that you provided. So again, cost per result, those result, like the actual result column is kind of the first thing that you're going to look at. And if those things are really lining up really well, and the ad, based on the cost per result, you're getting new clients, you're getting new business, everything, regardless of what the other numbers are, if everything's really working, then you keep the ad running and as it is. You can certainly test out different things, but this is where we're going to kind of continue as we go along the columns. This is where we kind of further diagnose, especially if this cost per result is a little bit high. This is where we can kind of dig into the numbers a little bit more and figure out, like, okay, is it the ad copy? Is it the landing page? Is it all those things as we go through? So you're going to see, like, typically as you get out of the learning phase, you'll get quality rankings, engagement rankings, those kind of things. This ad didn't quite have those. In terms of the impressions, so again, like, the impressions are the actual amount of people. So I talked about the one right here in terms of reach. That's the actual amount of people that saw your ad. The impressions is the total number of like, if you kind of use that frequency plus the reach, that will ultimately equal the impressions. So this is just the amount of time that your ad was served within, in this case, within the Facebook newsfeed, because that was what I was optimizing for. And then we got CPM, so cost per 1,000 impressions. So this basically says, like, what was the cost for Facebook to put your ad in front of 1,000 people? And this is just a great indicator. And this is why I kind of wanted to use this ad, is that the CPM is really high for this ad. And it's an indication that, for whatever reason, for compliance reason, really in this case, specifically where Facebook is making a lot more expensive to place this specific ad in front of that target market, because of specific words that are within the ad. So on average, your CPM should be around $25 or below. If it's below, like, if it's above that, and you can see this is almost double, more than double that $25, it's just an indication of there's specific words within the ad copy or the image that is really throwing off and is being kind of identified by the artificial intelligence of Facebook. And they're, for compliance reasons, they didn't reject the ad, so it's kind of on the borderline of being rejected. But there's specific words within the AI that's really being marked up, and that's the reason why it's costing a lot more than it normally would for that. So what I'm going to do within this ad is I'm actually going to go through and kind of mark up and take away any of those potential words that I know the AI is kind of identifying as potential triggers to get this CPM down. That should make the ad perform a lot better, hopefully get it even more opt-ins as we go through. So again, compliance is something that's really important. So going forward, starting next Wednesday, I'm actually going to put a focus in terms of my Facebook Lives on compliance, like what words you can use, what can't you use, best practices in terms of landing pages. Again, landing pages along with ads are something that Facebook looks like, especially from a conversion ad perspective. So you have to pay attention to what verbiage you're using on the landing page as well. So for this ad, it might be the combination of the ad copy, but also some of the words on the landing page as well. So I'm going to look at both of those things to make sure that I'm taking away or kind of replacing some of those words that are out there to make sure that from a client's compliance perspective, it's not only getting approved, but also that Facebook isn't, from a cost perspective, pushing that up even higher. And then we kind of go further along, and this is kind of another key metric that we're looking at, link clicks. And then what this really means is the amount of people that looked at the ad. And again, this is a conversion ad that we want to go to a specific landing page using a specific URL. So this is the amount of people that actually clicked on that link, that that call to action that I have in the ad. So this just gives you an indication. So 34 people clicked on the ad. Again, if we compare that to the results column, which was 10. Just give you an indication of, from a landing page perspective, like, what's working well and what isn't. So 10 people out of 34, around a third of people went through that landing page and opted in this example. Around a third is actually pretty good in terms of overall conversion of that landing page. If it was somewhat lower, if it was like 10% or 5%, that's where you get an indication of, okay, maybe I have to do a little bit more work in terms of the landing page. Maybe I have a different headline. Maybe I want to insert a little bit more curiosity. Also, it could be that your offer is just not one of those things that's not great either. So really thinking about from that perspective, but it's just an indication as we go along the columns. We'll get a better indication of that. CPC is just an indication of like what was your cost per each of those link clicks. And here's another, like this column right here is another, one of the first things that I look at. So I'm going to look at the results. I'm going to look at the cost per result. And then one of the first columns I'm going to go to is the link click-through rate. And this just basically gives you an indication of, based on those people, based on the amount of people that were shown the ad, how many people actually clicked on that link, how many actual people took the action that I was looking for them to take. And for this, kind of the average metric is to think about around 1%. So if it's above 1%, in this case, pretty good. So that's an indication of the ad copy is kind of speaking to the audience. They're going to that, they're clicking on the link, they're taking the action that we want them to, and that's really helpful. So again, use 1% for the click-through rate as an indication for your ad copy of saying like, okay, is this leading to the action that we want them to, especially from a conversion ad perspective? And it just gives you an indication of, okay, if your ad isn't performing as well as it should, or especially as your ad continues to run, this is an indicator, especially as the CTR gets lower and potentially lower and lower. This might be a good opportunity to start testing out some new ad copy, or maybe the first few lines before they hit that see more button for that ad. You might want to test out different things. You want to test out the image. So again, the first thing that you can really do is test out a new image, put another one out there, see if that raises the click-through rate. The other thing that I really go to is, again, kind of that sound bite above the see more button, those first 2 or 3 lines that's kind of the first thing. If you think about a user going through the news feed, the image captures their attention, and then they go to that, kind of first few lines, or maybe the headline below that image in terms of their eyes. So I want to make sure that that sound bite right above that is really sticking out, capturing their attention. They're hitting that see more button. And kind of going through the page and hitting that link at the bottom. And then you finally get to the point where, some of these other metrics in terms of clicks and CTR all. Clicks is just really a reflection of that Facebook ad, like how many people are actually clicking on it. So again, if they're hitting the see more button, that's an indicator that would fall under clicks. If they're clicking on the image or just anything, they might be hitting the like button or the comment button. So isn't as relevant for you in terms of overall metrics. But it just gives you, again, just further information that is out there. And those are kind of the main things. So again, as we look at it, as you're looking at your ads, what are the things that you should look at? Again, if you're running a conversion ad, we want to really look at those results. We want to compare that to either the receipts that the actual receipts that we have. If it's a purchase, we want to look at our email list and make sure that people are opting in and that's coming through as well. Again, as the Apple iOS update continues to go out, you might see some discrepancies there where you're actually getting more email subscribers or more purchases than what Facebook is showing. And that's completely, that's going to happen. And that's just a reflection of, kind of a mismatch between Apple not providing a lot of that data. There's kind of a delay in getting some of that data back. And also, if you're not getting the purchases or you're not getting the email subscribers, that might be an indication of there's something wrong with the Facebook pixel or something wrong with the setup that you want to figure out and kind of stop your ads before you run a ton of stuff and it's not getting the actions that you're looking for. Looking at that cost per result. So again, as you run more and more ads, you're going to get to the space and get to the number where you can put a set number. I can get to the number, the exact number, where you can say I have to spend for every $17 I spend on Facebook ads, I'm getting a client out of that. And really thinking about, again, your lifetime value of that client. So your lifetime value might be a couple $1,000s, and you're spending only a couple $100s on Facebook, and that's a really great place to be. And the other thing to kind of think about is, results are really going to vary across various different geographies. It's going to be a little bit more expensive within the US, where the space is a lot more competitive, and then within specific industries. So there's no set number of cost per result. It's really going to vary based on your business, your audience, your geography, all those kind of things. So don't try and compare your ads to somebody else's and saying like, oh, mine isn't as performing as well because my cost per lead is much higher. Really putting in the contents of your lifetime value and those kind of things, and other kind of industry and geographical things will play into that. Second thing, again, like one of the first indicators that I look at, because I'm really focused on that Facebook ad copy, is looking through and looking at that link click-through rate. And again, that's an indication of the amount of people that are seeing your ad, how many people are actually taking that action that you're looking for, clicking through to that landing page or website or whatever it is. We want to get to at least 1% is kind of that kind of sweet spot that we want to be in. If it's above 1%, that's an indication that, if you want to improve your ad, or if there's a problem with it, maybe the Facebook ad copy and the image probably isn't the main problem. That's where you'd start to look at things like link clicks and kind of compare that to your results. And that will give you an indication of like, maybe it's my landing page. Maybe my conversion, once they get to the landing page, not as many people are opting in. Maybe I'm going to try a different headline. Maybe I'm going to try some different copy on there. Maybe I'm going to raise the curiosity a little bit more to get people moving forward. And again, it could be a combination of maybe your copy is great, maybe your landing page is great, but the offer just isn't appealing enough for your audience. Or what I've seen more and more is they see, like your offer isn't unique enough. So you're putting out an offer that they're seeing everywhere else, and it's just not tempting enough. They're basically saying like, I've tried that before, it didn't work for me, or I've tried something like that, and it's not raising their curiosity or kind of building enough belief that you're gonna, like, your product or service is gonna help them. So really think about the combination of those things, but the key is kind of really testing out different ads over time. So if your click-through rate is below 1%, first thing you would do is throw out a new image, just throw out something else relative and test it versus what you have here. If that doesn't work, check out some and put out some different sound bites. So again, the first few lines above that ad. And if that doesn't work, think about creating a brand new ad copy altogether. Typically, when I'm running ads, what I'll do is I'll give clients not only a specific ad copy, but I'll give them 5 different variations of that soundbite, a couple different variations of the image, so they have all that kind of prepared, so that we're kind of anticipating potential problems that might come through, so they can kind of move quickly, especially if that CTR is a little bit lower. We can go out and start testing other things right off the bat. And the thing is as well, with that soundbite, you never know what's really going to appeal to people. So I typically have clients run those 5 different soundbite variations all at once. And what typically happens is one ad will really stand out, one soundbite will really stand out more than others, and that allows you to kind of create a control over time. So those are kind of my way of working with clients. What I would say for you is, if you're running Facebook ads right now and you're looking at your performance, looking across some of those metrics, let me know in the comments below what some of your metrics look like here in terms of results, in terms of the click-through rate, link clicks, all those kind of things. Would love to kind of take a look at your ads, improve them even further if I can, kind of take a look at that. So let me know in the comments if you're running ads or just want to make it a little bit more personalized for the ads that you're specifically running, happy to kind of take a look at what you have and kind of take a look at some of your metrics. If you want to provide a screenshot or just type them in, feel free to send me a direct message as well. I'm happy to go through those and kind of suggest ways of, hopefully everything is working out really well. And it's just a matter of like, how can we get your cost per lead even lower and get you even more results? So feel free to do that in the comments on whatever platform you are. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button, share it with anybody else that might be running Facebook ads right now, just so they have a better understanding of what data is out there and how they can potentially improve their ad. And with that, I'll see you tomorrow at 2:30 for the next Facebook Live on Facebook ads. Thanks.